See so many of you. Thank you all for being here. Hey, everybody. It's fun. I'm having a great time. I was so energized after the last session. Were you all? Did that feel fun? Yeah. Yay, Nigel. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. I think. All
Okay,
right.
good.
Um, Okay, so we're in session two. So one of the things that we are going to be what we're going to be talking about today is, we did all of that brainstorming of different skills and things that we wanted to possibly convey to somebody about us. So we're going to look at, okay, what are the different types of visual elements that I can use to convey some of these things, these complex ideas that I want to simplify. And I'm going to talk about contact information, photo, design elements, font, and color. So I am by no means a graphic artist or a graphic designer. That should make you all feel good because if I can do it, then you can do it. But that does mean that I have to do a little bit of studying up on stuff to get myself to be able to explain it well enough to you so that it makes sense. So if you have any questions, absolutely, we want you to ask away. And because if you have that question, I can pretty much guarantee somebody else has that question. So that is what we are planning to what I'm planning on talking about today. So yeah, our first session was to brainstorm and map your story. We're really going to be doing more of the design elements and mapping your story today. Next week, we get into the actual hands-on creation, and I'm a little worried how that's going to work. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then the last session four is, and I was just talking to Stacy about this. It would break my heart if you went through all the pain and work to create this infographic and then it just sat on your desktop. That would make me cry because the whole idea is to make the world aware of this infographic and how wonderful you are. So that'll be the fourth session that we get into. So I want to ask you all to enter in the chat. We'll go back to the chat right now. What was your biggest aha moment, either when brainstorming or doing those assessments? What sort of clicked for you? What felt good? What was a good aha moment? If you can enter that in the chat, I'd just like to hear some of your feedback on what that was like. Oh, Francesca, that's so cool. And I want so the more specific I get, the more of my uniqueness comes out, and that's really what we want. Oh, good. I'm glad, Nigel, that the star technique helped you identify some stuff. Oh, Wanda, you're seeing yourself, or Gary, seeing yourself in a different perspective. And yes, Wanda, a picture can express 1,000 words. Oh, it's so powerful. Good. Oh, good, Kathy. I'm glad you've got those skills coming up, bubbling up. Good. Good, good. I'm glad. Thank you all and so more importantly, it's good for me to hear this because it sort of reaffirms my belief that your stories really are powerful. And to do this pre-work to identify those stories really makes the creation of the infographic that much better because you have a better sense of what it is that makes you unique and special and what you really want to highlight because there are lots of things that are fine, you could highlight them, but they're not as exciting. So good. Okay, Trisha, connecting the dots on how the skills connect toward the jobs. That's okay, Kathy, that you had a challenge narrowing down your top 3 to 6. That maybe you can have 7, 8, 9. I think you'll get there eventually. Okay. Tammy, that's good to know that you've sort of been exposed to some of these assessment-y kind of things before. Excellent. So What I'm so glad to hear is that you actually did take some time to do some of those exercises to f- to flesh out, to pull out some of your wonderful stories. So thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at mapping your story. And I'm just fixing this bar here a little bit so that I can get it better. Okay, that's much better. All right. So if you haven't taken out a piece of paper, I'm going to ask you to do that now. As always, Stacy will put the handout in the YouTube file, in the YouTube video message thing, the what's it called? The description. But I think that it's helpful for you all to have something to work from right now as we're moving forward, because the more you can get done right now, the less you'll have to worry about or think about later. So let's just review what goes on any kind of document that you want people to be able to contact you, right? And that's what the infographic is. So your name, your phone number and email. You do not need your mailing address, city, state. Nobody cares about that at this day and age. So don't leave that on there. If you have a LinkedIn profile, that's really going to be helpful to either put the URL, the actual web address of your profile, or even just a little icon that says LinkedIn on it. Your headline is something that we haven't really talked a lot about, and I don't want to obsess over it, but if you were to describe what it is you want to do next, that would be your headline and what qualifies you to do that. Some of you may already have a much longer summary of qualifications or summary or about section from LinkedIn or your resume. Nobody wants to read all of that. So when you're putting something like that on your infographic resume, which you absolutely can, um, because that's an overview, it's a short bio. By short, it's like 100 words or less. So how can you take the information that may already be on your resume or maybe in your LinkedIn about section? It might be some pieces, other places. The answer to tell me about yourself. What is it that someone absolutely has to know about you in 100 words or less? That would be your short bio. That's going to be the bulk of the text that you'll find on this infographic resume, because the whole idea is to not make people read, but to really convert anything in writing to an image or a visual representation. You will notice, if you haven't already, a lot of the infographic resume templates out there have a headshot of the person. And so there are a couple of schools of thought on this, and I want to be pretty transparent about what I think and what I want you to know about including a headshot or not, right? It is absolutely always your choice. And because this resume is not being filtered directly to HR, I think it's okay for you to have a headshot. If this infographic resume, if this were a traditional resume and you knew that it was going to be uploaded into an applicant tracking system and it was going to go to HR or a recruiter, I would say, no, 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 never, ever include your headshot. But this is something that is going to be delivered as you are either emailing it to somebody you know who's may or may not be hiring for a job, but they're not going to be HR for the most part. You're going to be emailing this to a friend. You may be posting it on LinkedIn. You may be sharing it somewhere else on social media that you're active. So having your picture is just sort of repeating, because your picture's all over LinkedIn anyway, and anybody that you know knows what you look like. So they're not going to use your headshot to discriminate or what's the word? I guess discriminate against you or for you. So I would say a headshot is something that would be okay on an infographic resume. Are there questions about that? Okay. So the other reason I want you to have sort of a piece of paper out is because, and I hope it's blank, I want you, this is sort of a rough idea of thinking in blocks and mapping out your work in blocks or content blocks. Because when you create your infographic, it's going to be a bunch of different squares or rectangles that represent different things. And so if you get into the hang of doing that now, it's going to make it easier for you to sort of visualize what your infographic might look like down the road. So obviously there's going to be a section that's going to have your name and name in it, maybe a section for your about, maybe you choose a timeline and that would take up the full width of the page. Maybe there's a block for technical skills, a box for traits or soft skills. There are probably lots of other boxes, and we'll get to that in a second, but this is what we're talking when I talk about wireframe. Graphic designers and web designers do this all the time. Before they get to actually creating what it is they want to create, they map it out, wireframe it on a piece of paper so that they make sure that what they're going to put there will look good. And we'll talk about that, because if your technical skills and your traits and something else, you're using the same graph type, that becomes monotonous, and you may want to vary up either your placement of that block or placement of the type of graph you choose. But we'll take a better look at that. Okay, so here is an opportunity for you to think about. These were all of the different things that you were assessing or evaluating yourself on in the homework assignment. So what I want you to do is, using your annotate button, I want you to put a stamp. If you click on the annotate and then you click on stamp, you can put an arrow, a star, a heart, a check, a question mark. I want you to annotate the things that you are most excited about putting in an infographic. So just I'm putting my hearts there to give you an idea. So you can put whatever you want. Just which block are you most excited about converting into an infographic? Ooh, cool. I love the fact that a couple of you are interested in the standout facts. That's wonderful. Timeline. Okay. Skills. A lot of people with skills. Don't you love this annotate? It's sort of fun.
Hannah, can you remind us how to annotate?
Sure. If you go to the toolbar at the bottom, well, mine's at the bottom, where you see mute, video, security, share. One of those is a pencil.
Don't see a pencil.
You don't see. Click on the more. Do you see the more?
No.
Nope. Because you're a host or a co-host, Hannah, you see different things from what we see. So up at the top where it says you are viewing Hannah Morgan's screen and there's view options, if you click on the down arrow next to view options, one of the choices is annotate. That's as a participant.
Who is that brilliant person? Who was that?
It's Laura Nelson.
Hi, Laura Nelson.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. I knew I saw things differently, but I thought the bar was everywhere. Thank you. And so now you found it, right?
I did. Thank you.
Yay, Jude. All right. Good. So some of these things are actually a little bit of a surprise to me. So many people, so few people checked interests, and I would love to see more people think about that interest. Thank you. They're popping up right now, because I think that that's just another way of really incorporating your entire self into this. There. Great. Awesome work, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I want you to keep in mind that out of all the things that you may have starred or checked or have been excited, I want you to start with one in the back of your mind. So let's say it's the skills, since so many people chose skills. Okay, so as I'm going through some of the next slides, I want you to think about, okay, if I were to show my skills, what's the best way for me to do that? Okay, so that's sort of where I'm trying to get you focused on that. Okay, I'm clearing this. Sorry, everybody. Thank you for doing that. That was awesome. Oh, 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 wait, hold on. I don't think you want to see my little heart. Okay. There's so many steps out here to do. Okay, so let's look at choosing our design elements. So there, this is a line graph. This is a pie chart. These are quotes. What is that? That's another form of a quote. It's a Venn diagram, awards, education, and bar graph. So they're all different types of elements, and we're going to be looking at many of them. I'm going to show you examples of how they can actually look. And I've taken these examples from other infographic resumes or infographic templates that I've come across, but they're nothing overly fancy that you couldn't replicate in many different ways. So let's say that you have, and I'm looking at this 2018 to 2021, let's say that you really want to draw attention to the jobs that you held over the last 4 or 5 years. That's sort of been the apex of your career. There's been a great progression or a series of really great looking jobs, and that's really what you want to emphasize. Then using that kind of a line, timeline would be really great because it's front and center. People are really, um, forced to see it. So you would use the job title if you wanted, and probably just the job title, or industry. The other thing that you could do is you could insert the company logo right in here as well. So if one job was with GE, the next was with Microsoft, the next year was whatever. You see what I'm saying? To give this additional visual appeal and to instantly sort of show people what this is, that it's work experience, you could add the company logo there. That's probably best if the company is well known, but we don't know what companies are well known based on our audience, so any company logo would work. The other option is to do something a little bit more circular, like this one over here, and this really is somebody who's in a different line of work there in the educational system, but what they've done is sort of use that arc to show the different roles that they were in. And they put that arrow in there to make sure you know that I was there and there and there. You could easily put in dates if you wanted to, or if you didn't want to put in dates at all, because there's huge gaps in between these roles and there wasn't a really nice sequence, that's another way to do that. And it's a great way to say, okay, this is the arc of my career, which is a nice thought. And these are the important roles that sort of fit together and have given me the experience that I want you to know about. So this allows us to be more selective in the work experience that we talk about. So for those of you that said, "Ooh, I want to show the timeline," these are a couple of ways to do that that are creative, that aren't necessarily as traditional. Are there any questions on that? Now, the question that I think that you might be wondering is, well, how do I create that? We're going to talk about that next week. But what I want you to think about is if you're going to show a timeline on your infographic resume, where do you think that should be? Do you think that should be front and center, near the very top? Or do you think it's better placed down low and everything else sort of supports your work history? Or does it go along the side? And does it go on the right side or the left side? Because when we read left to right. So if you really want to emphasize your work history, then you would put it on the left-hand side because they would see that first. If you don't want it to be as emphasized, but you still want it to be there, maybe you put it on the right-hand side. So I think that it's not only the size of something, but also the placement. and you choose, and that's one of the reasons why we have this wireframe. So go ahead and put, if that timeline was something that you were interested in including, then jot down some notes about where that might go. There are so many different fun ways to show skills, and not just hard skills. These could be personal skills as well, the soft skills, or what are they? There's another word for them, essential skills, I think. And I like being able to show that because so often we get focused on the hard skills that we don't really talk about some of these other things that are equally valuable, like the urge to learn and the curiosity, the ability to be flexible and tolerant. We need that stuff today, and it's almost more important today than it was pre-pandemic. So there is one way to sort of show the breadth. Now, here's the deal. When you're creating any kind of a pie chart, which is what we're looking at there, you have to assign some sort of a numeric value to say, okay, I want this to be a third or a fifth or an eighth or whatever. So you will determine the size of the slice of the pie, but you'll have to give it a numeric equivalent when you get to that point, whether it's a percentage or a number. Right. So the other way to look at your skills is, okay, how do I spend my day or my week? So in this case over here, the person has sort of used the slice of the pie to talk about the not the level of skill, but the frequency of use of that skill. So I use my social media a lot in my daily. I use my web. I use my, and the thing to realize is that in different roles that you might be looking at, they may value your social media creation content, but that's not going to be a regular component of the job. But you have it, it's a major part of your job now. I wish jobs did a much better job of demonstrating how much of a slice of a pie is this responsibility that you're showing on there. And sometimes you do see 50% or they'll give sort of an allocation of time. But I like this visual because it really shows if I had to create the perfect day, these are the things that I would like to be doing on a regular day. The other side here is the skills, and these are donuts that show a percentage. So, and I don't think you have to, someone else, so you could list your percentage of time using those skills or percent mastery, whatever you really want to do. I think you're better off with the percentage of time that you use that skill. Just be sure that you qualify that somewhere, skills used on a weekly basis. So that people understand that, because someone said to me, why would I say I only have my mastery of this skill is only 29%? That makes me look like I'm not really good at it. So I sort of makes sense to me. And what's the point of showing that all of your skill mastery is 99%? There's no value to that. So this is really use of skill or preferred use of skill. So these are the pie or the donuts to show breadth distribution of skills. Does that make sense to folks? Okay, yes, you could even do that. Yeah, so I'm looking at Wanda's post. You could do a donut, and and the donut has segments, right? So there, as you go around one donut, you could do all of the different skills around the donut that way too. Okay. The next are bars. And again, it could be, this is usually for mastery of skills. So list the skills or the types of skills and then just show mastery. You don't have to say 100%. You don't have to use any number if you don't want to, because it's sort of implied that that's really good. Or you could use, you can use sort of this kind of a skill set where you're spelling out the skills and again, in a bar format, showing level of skill. Or you could list all of your skills for those people who have lots of skills. What I liked about this one is that not only do they use the well-known icon, but they also label it with sort of a measure of how strong that skill set is. So there's so many different ways to show the depth and breadth of skills. So when you think about your skills, part of this is how are you going to cluster or group your skills? Right? Are these digital skills? Are these financial skills? Are these management, leadership skills? Are these time management skills? Are these work-related process and procedures? So any of those things could be either, a pie or a bar chart. So you probably will have maybe 2 or 3 different sets of skills that you're identifying on your infographic because they do fall into different camps. And so if you do something to think about is, okay, if you may not want to make them all donuts. Right, you may want to have one block for like digital skills like that, and then have another block that is, a pie chart that shows a different set of skills, just to vary it and to make it a little bit more lively. Does that make sense to folks? Okay. So one of the other things that used to be really popular and that's sort of fallen out of favor are word clouds. You can still make them with a word cloud generator. And this is where you take a list of your keywords. And if you want the word to be bigger, then you have to list it more. So it's a little playing around to make a word cloud. What we're seeing more of these days are more cubes, and I don't even know the right tree. Maybe it's a tree where I think these are blocks or trees to show just a list of keywords that makes it a little bit more streamlined. And so this web strategy are all the different skill sets or work-related processes or procedures related to web strategy. That's something that you can easily create in PowerPoint. So I will say, and we'll talk more about this, but you could easily create an infographic resume in PowerPoint because it has some really cool charts and graphs and word art that allows you to create some of these things. You would just want to change it to an 8.5 by 11 and make it vertical versus horizontal. But and I like looking at PowerPoint because it gives me ideas of, oh, I could use this for my own purposes in a different way. We want to make sure that we're using infographic elements that are contemporary, that aren't dated or have fallen out of favor. And I tend to think, I mean, we still see some word clouds, but it's not as popular as they're not as popular as they used to be. But it's a great way for you to show all of those keywords that you want to make sure people see on your resume. So for those of you that are thinking about doing call outs or highlights, there's so many cool ways to do this. So this is lifted, just sort of a career summary, 12 years of 12 years as a creative director, 10 years on the client side, 2 years on the agency side. So that's a fun way of showing that. But you can also see all of these really cool stats here at the bottom where you have a number that's big and then underneath it is sort of the explanation of what that number is. The nice thing of you could have a stat per, you could cluster all of your stats together like this, or you could give each one its own block or its own sort of icon setting and spatter them throughout the document. Okay, any questions around that? Okay. Another option is to use sort of comparative information. The larger the bubble, the more significant it is. So this tree actually comes from a graphic designer who won an award for this beautiful infographic resume. The bigger the bubble in her case was, the more prestigious the award that she won. But you could even use it to identify skills in a more colorful format, or you could use a Venn diagram to show the overlap and relationship between the different parts of your role or your job. This makes sense? Okay. Okay, so those were all of the different formats, the more common, different types of graphic elements that you could use. And I'm going to stop here for a second and sort of give you a chance to map out on your piece of paper some of the things that you would take away from and want to try and implement on your own, or at least create a wireframe around it. And if you have questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. You want me to show the timeline again? Oh, hold on, let me go back. Wanda, when will what be presented? If you want to unmute yourself, you can do that.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, when would I present the infographic resume to someone?
Okay, so you could email it to somebody that you know, because you want to make sure they know what your skill sets are. You could put it in your LinkedIn profile as one of the featured items. You could update your status on LinkedIn with it to share it with your network and say, hey, I just created this infographic resume to show people what I'm capable of doing in this kind of work that I'm looking for. Check out my infographic. You could deliver it in an interview if you were going on an interview. If you're having an informational conversation with someone you don't know, like someone says, oh, you should talk to Jude. She's really helpful and she knows a lot. Oh, okay. Then you could send Jude in advance of your meeting a copy of your infographic resume, which is so much more fun for somebody to receive rather than a standard resume. Because this is why I like it better than a standard resume. Whenever you send somebody your resume in standard text format, the first thing that they do is they grab their red pen and they start saying, I would move this here, I would put that there. They're critiquing your resume. That's not why you're sharing your resume with somebody, and nobody dares to critique your infographic resume. As long as you say, I've attached a copy of my infographic that gives a highlight, an overview of my career, I think it'll be helpful to guide our discussion.
Okay, once again, I'm sorry. What section of LinkedIn did you say to put this in?
So LinkedIn now has this section called featured.
Right, okay.
And you can upload any kind of picture or document into that. So you could upload it there. So it would be like one of the first things somebody would see when they're looking at your LinkedIn profile, because it's right above your About section.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, Wanda. Thank you for asking. And we'll talk about this again, and I'll show people on in the last session all the different places and ways to use this. So that's a great question. So would you send both types of resumes if you're applying for a position? So here's the thing. If you are actually submitting your resume through email where somebody says, please email us your resume, then yes, you could submit both your resume and your infographic resume, your text and your infographic. But in 99% of the cases today, you are applying through an applicant tracking system, which means it's an automated system where you have to enter in like the data. You have to enter in your name and your address and all of that stuff. In that case, no, you're not going to upload your infographic resume. So because the technology can't read your infographic. So if you're emailing it, you absolutely can. But if you're uploading it into any kind of a system where they say upload your resume, enter your information here, no, you can't. Yep, that's right, Tammy. So when you have an interview is another really great time to bring this. I've talked to a lot of people who have brought them into interviews and they've sort of wowed the interviewer with one. Oh, we're not even going into interviews anymore. So if you're about to have an interview, you could email it to the person you're going to be interviewing with. Okay. So are you having some fun? Does anyone want to hold up in front of their camera the beginnings of their wireframe? Well, I can't see everybody. Hold on. Anyone want to share their work? I'm looking. I'm not seeing anybody. Oh, wait, there's one. Jude. Okay, how do I make Jude bigger? I'm going to stop sharing. Hold on. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And Jude, okay, I see the top. Scroll down. Okay. 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 So you got a little bit there. You've started some thoughts and getting some stuff on the page there. Anybody else want to share? Oh,
just so you know, if you go to the little square and the little three dots pop up and you click on them and then you say you pin them to the top, they'll get big. So you can see better.
Do the speaker view. Did I see you, Nigel? Were you holding something up?
Yeah, I've got this silly sky built image behind me, and I don't think it's.
Oh, wait, but I could see if you hold it really close. Hold it really close. It's a pie, right? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're right. It doesn't come through. but I saw it was a pie, right?
Yes, I think that's really cool to show Korea.
Yeah, right. And how that fits together. So that's sort of a way that you're sharing your story. Thank you. That's awesome. Anybody else want to try and share? That's okay. You don't need to. I just was thinking you might want to. Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So this resume, you would, I guess everything is done in Word and then you would add your graphics to it?
So we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Or the next time we meet, we're going to be looking at the different tools that you can use to create this. Word is certainly one of them, but there are other tools you can use as well that are graphic design tools that are free to use. So
Okay.
what I'm suggesting now is that you just draw this with pen and paper. You don't even need to put it in Word, because what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the free infographic software that's going to create this, that we can create this on instead of in a Word document.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's a good question. Okay, let's talk about fonts a little bit. Again, not a graphic designer. I know enough to be dangerous. In the world of resume writing, we used to always write our resumes in the Times New Roman, right? The reason for that, the Times New Roman, Georgia, Baskerville, those are all serif fonts. They have little feet around the bottom. The A has a little tail on it. So the serif means tail or foot. So those are very easy to read in book format. If you're reading a real book, like a hardcover book, then you usually see that font is in a serif font because it's easier to read. The words flow better. On computer screens, we tend to see websites designed and text presented in a sans serif, which means without the foot or without the little tail. Those are fonts like Lato, Avenir, Source Sans Pro. So just to give you sort of that comparison, you can see the serif versus the sans serif. And in Microsoft Word, there are, and all the different tools that I'll be showing you, they have serif and sans serif fonts. When you're creating your infographic, you're going to have section headers or headers, and then you're going to have some text. So you want to have two fonts that work well together. They could be two serif or two sans serif. But in most cases, when you see people who are designing graphics, they pick a header in usually either a sans or a serif, and then the text or the body is done in the other format. So the Luna for header, is an example of what not to do. Like, that's just way too much going on. The header's a funky font, and then the body is very hard to read. But on the other side, the Luna for header, and then the Latin Modern, you have more of a wild font, but an easier to read font in the body. So this is why you're going to want to select two different fonts, one for the header of the sections, and then one for any body of the text that will be easy to read. Oops. So there, I have a trick for you. If you go to this website, and I'm going to see if I can copy and whoop, see if I can. I'm going to put it in the chat so that you can easily access it. This is a font pairer, and it's free. So if you go to that link, if you open up that link that I'm showing you now, that's in the chat box, it will ask you to select a starter font. That would be the font that you would want for your header, let's say. So you can scroll down through and select a font that you like the looks of for your header. And then when you click on that, Canva Font Combinations will pick for you a nice font that goes along with it. So go ahead and play with that right now. Pick a starter font and then a pair. And then what I'd like you to do using the annotate is to type in your font pair. And I'm going to go first. I can't remember what that one's called. Anton, I think. So that's my font combo. I use those all the time for my infographics when I create them. What was the font combo that you got? Montserrat and Droid Serif. Oh, that's a nice combo. I've heard of both of theirs. The reason this is important is that your font choice influences it's a chance for you to express your personality and your mood and what you want people to think about when they are reading your infographic. It's also a chance to brand. Sort of set yourself apart. Anyone else want to share? I think it's a fun tool. So don't forget your 2 fonts, or at least remember how you got them, right? So say either bookmark this or save it. I love Futuro. Okay. Oh, Libra and Math. These are some fun things to see. Now, depending on the tool that we end up using next time, there may not, they don't always have exactly the fonts in the same name, but you can find something similar. So if they don't have that exact same font, then you'll have to sort of do a new match, but at least you've gotten that idea of, okay, this is how I can easily pick 2 fonts that look good together, according to Canva, okay? All right, I'm going to clear all. Thank you for sharing your work. I appreciate that. We're next going to move into colors, right? And my mom was an artist, as a matter of fact. She did that painting behind me. That's my mom. So she was formally trained. I'm not formally trained. But what I know is that colors mean something, right? So when you think about this, you're going to pick 2 colors, maybe 3, but probably just 2. Each color represents something. So if you're using a lot of red, that's hot. That's love, passion, romance, danger, energy. You want to use red very on purpose, right? So there's, blue is peace, serenity, confidence, integrity, tranquility. When you think a lot of the big brands that you know of, like IBM has always been blue because blue is, trustworthy, blah, 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 blah. Nike is black, that powerful, swoosh. So their different colors mean different things. If you had to choose a color sort of as your primary, go ahead in the chat and tell me which color best represents you. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Blue, couple blues, orange. I love orange. It's so eye-catching. Blue. Sunflower gold. That's not just gold, sunflower gold. That's wonderful. Purple. Great. Blue. So now that you have blue and orange, now that you have your primary color, let's go ahead and find colors that go well with that color, because you'll have a primary color and then you'll have a secondary and maybe even a tertiary. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, again, because this color tool is by Adobe, very well thought of company organization. I'll copy that. I'm going to put it in the chat. Really. So in the chat, what I want you to do is pick your primary color, and then you can toggle. You can pick colors that are analogous or similar, just in different shades, or you can pick all blue and monochromatic, or a triad, which would be 3 colors in a pyramid from one another, or you could pick complementary colors that are across the color wheel from one another. So they're all different types of pairings or matchings you can use to select colors just by picking that one primary color. So if you want to go ahead and see what you can find for your match. I think when I am selecting colors, I really go with my gut instinct. What makes me feel good? What instantly appeals to me? Um, I'm not always the best judge, but I think that when you've got sort of in this case that I'm showing you on the screen this range of complementary colors, so I'm not going to use all 5 of these, but I really like the light blue and the darkest beige on the end. So at least it gives me some place to start from. The other thing that I will point out is that every color has a hex code or a number value to it. And if you look at the very, very, very bottom of my screen here, and the bottom underneath all of these A, B, C, D, E colors, there's a pound sign and then a number letter series. That's the unique code for that exact color. So if you're using this Adobe Color tool and you find a color that you absolutely have fallen in love with, copy down that number, and then you can use that color on anywhere else on the web just by using that number, and that exact same color will come up. You could use it in any PowerPoint or any Word document that you're creating. So that number is unique to that color anywhere electronically, I guess. So does anyone want to share their color combo, oh, sorry. Does anyone want to share, you might, yeah, I guess we'd have to share on the screen any color combos that you like. Ooh, Nigel, that 7292E6, right? Yellow, blue. Okay, that's nice. That's a nice contrast to the yellow and the blue. And are they on opposite ends of the opposite? I think those are analog, complementary. Uh-oh, Wanda, what are your school colors? So you don't really need to do anything with the wheel, Kathy. All you need to do is select a color that you like, and then you can choose how you want it to, what combination you're looking for, and it sort of will match that color up with something else. Thank you, Laura, for helping. Dark purple and gold, purple and green. We've got a lot of royalty. So are you asking me that question, Nigel? Because I have 2 colors that I use. It's a blue and a green. And sometimes I use them together. They're in my logo. I can't remember their hex code number off the top of my head, but I have to enter them all the time when I'm creating graphics to make sure I use the exact same colors. Yes, the colors you use absolutely would reflect your personal brand. Absolutely. If you want them to. I mean, if you just want to pick colors that resonate with you and you like them, that's fine too. If you, yeah. Okay, so we've got colors going on. Let me clear this. Thank you all for sharing. So In the handout, you'll see some of these design rules, but no more than 2 fonts. Use a color combination that works well. Select and then sort of some hints, and bar and line graphs can be used to show profit, but they can also use to show skills. Pie and donut charts can show your daily responsibilities or skills, and bubbles can represent comparative information. So all of that is in the handout, sort of a summary of what we've talked about so far. Also in the handout is this wireframe, which you don't have to, you're not married to, but it gives you sort of an overall picture of what you might want to do to create a full infographic. So your homework, as we talk about it, will be just to draw this out. You don't need to create anything in Word. It's not electronic. I just want you on a piece of paper between now and the next time we meet to map out a section for each one of the different skills that you want to showcase on your infographic using a wireframe. Shoot, hold on. Okay. Let me just show you. Pinterest is great for finding stuff. We all know that recipes come up all the time, right? I want to show you quickly some of the infographic resumes I've been collecting over the years, because I think it can be helpful to give you different ideas of the different things that you can do. I've shown you several, examples in our presentation today, but I think you can find even more examples. Are you seeing my infographic and visual resume screen?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why it's so slow. So if you, and I will actually copy and paste this in the text box. Please save this if you want to use to go back during your sort of evening between now and next week. And if you want to look at some of these infographic resumes to get ideas, you'll see that there are some that are really over the top, right? And I'm not expecting that you would be able to create this on your own. A lot of these are created by professionals, but some of them give you ideas about new ways of showcasing something or presenting your infographic. So save that URL to that Pinterest page, or you can simply, yeah. So Laura, a lot of them are jammed. That is the idea behind infographic resumes. They don't follow the same conventional white space rule. Infographics have different rules around the amount of white space. So look through, I mean, some of them do, but go through and find some that you, elements that you like, things that you could say, oh, I can totally see doing this for myself. And then you can use that as part of your wireframe mapping things out. Okay, hold on, let me go back. Well, I know we're almost out of time here, so I want to just quickly sort of debrief. What graph type is best for listing your skills? Put that in the chat. What graph types do well for listing skills? Pie works, absolutely. Bar works, pie, bar, yep, both of those work. Yay! How many fonts? What's the maximum number of fonts that I recommend that you use in your infographic? Okay, got that one. And then the last question I can't read. Which template are you going to look at? That's sort of an unfair question, that because you don't know. I haven't given you that. So your homework is to look at infographic resumes for ideas of what you could incorporate into your own. So that's going to mean that you find an infographic element for each one of the different qualities that you plan on putting in your infographic. You're going to formally list the colors that you're going to use, the 2 or 3 colors that you want to focus in. You're going to list the 2 fonts that you're going to use. if you need to collect company logos or icons that you plan on using or that you definitely want to use, or any photos like a headshot, go ahead and put those in a folder on your desktop, because you will need those when we get to the point where you're actually creating. You can upload a lot of those into the software, the free software that we're going to be using. So overall, your homework is to complete the wireframe so that when we get to the next week, you've got a pretty clear roadmap of what you want to put where, or at least you can find a template that might be similar, or at least to offer some of the elements that you're looking for. So, right, and you don't know which font yet, and you can have all the time you need between now and next week to pick that out and determine. There was that font selector that was in the comments. So if you all want the links to the Pinterest and the font and the color, I can't remember if I put them all in the handout. You may want to look at the chat box and click on the 3 dots and click Save Chat, so that you can have a record of all of the those URLs that I put in there, all those web addresses. So Kathy can't be here next week, so I don't know, Stacy, how long it takes you to get the upload, the recording up, but I don't think it's very long.
No, it just kind of depends how long it takes to process and other things that are going on, but certainly within a day, it's usually up. Sometimes that night.
Okay. So we are past 3 o'clock. I'm sensitive to your time, but I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have in the next couple of minutes. Glad you liked it, Elizabeth. Thank you all for coming. Look for the recording of this and the handout in that description, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Hannah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.